They say family is supposed to protect you, to love you, to keep you safe. But sometimes, the people we trust the most, they become the ones we fear the most. This is the story of a boy, a 15-year-old with autism, vulnerable, trusting, and completely at the mercy of someone who claims she only wanted to help him. Help. Funny word, isn't it? It can mean lending a hand, or, in this case, wielding the hand that beats you down. Jallen McConnie didn't know that when he walked into his cousin's house, he was stepping into his own grave. For 32 days, he endured what no child should ever face. A boot camp, they called it, but it was nothing short of a slow, systematic execution. And the drill instructor? His own flesh and blood. This isn't just a crime story. It's a nightmare. A nightmare with dumbbells, ice-cold bathtubs, forced starvation, and a little thing called water torture, a method so brutal it's literally been used in wars. Except this wasn't a battlefield. It was a bathroom in Memphis, Tennessee. But here's the real kicker. The one thing that makes this case go from tragic to downright infuriating. Even after everything she did, after the bruises, the broken body, the final breath that left Jallen in that cursed bathroom, his killer, Johnette Booker, still had the audacity to call this tough love. Love? Now, I don't know about you, but if love involves starvation, torture, and making someone do push-ups until they pass out, I think I'll just stay single, thanks. This case will make your stomach turn. It will make your blood boil. And if you're not already questioning how someone could do this to their own family, just wait. Because the deeper we go, the darker it gets. Welcome to the tragic, horrifying, and completely avoidable death of Jallen McConnie, and the woman who made sure he never saw his 16th birthday. Some people believe in tough love, a slap on the wrist, a firm voice, a little discipline never hurt anybody, right? But then there are people who take that idea and twist it into something unrecognizable, something monstrous. And that's when tough love stops being about love and starts becoming just tough. Jallen McConnie was just 15 years old. A kid, really. Like any other boy his age, he had dreams, fears, and his own unique struggles. Because Jallen wasn't just any teenager. He was a boy with autism. For him, the world could be overwhelming. The noise, the lights, the unpredictability of everyday life. It was all a lot to handle. But he wasn't a bad kid. He just needed patience, understanding, support. And that's where his cousin, Johnette Booker, was supposed to come in. Family is supposed to protect you, right? To have your back, no matter what. And if Johnette had been the person she pretended to be, this story wouldn't exist. But, well, here we are. Johnette Booker. On the surface, she was just a regular woman from Memphis, Tennessee. Nothing remarkable. Just another face in the crowd. A mother. A cousin. A woman who, by all appearances, seemed to care about her family. She told everyone she was trying to help Jallen, that she wanted to toughen him up, teach him discipline, responsibility, respect, a little life training, she called it. Now, to be fair, some people do need a little discipline. I mean, have you ever met a teenager who doesn't need to be reminded to pick up their socks? Exactly. But here's the thing. What Johnette Booker had in mind. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't tough love. This was something else entirely. Something darker. Something sinister. It all started with what seemed like simple rules. Jallen moved in with Johnette. And at first, things were okay. There were expectations, sure. Curfews. Chores. The kind of structure that maybe could have been good for him. But soon, those rules turned into restrictions. And the restrictions? They turned into punishments. And the punishments? Well, they turned into something much worse. Johnette's house became less of a home and more of a training camp. No, scratch that. It became a prison. A prison where Jallen wasn't just a resident. He was an inmate. And the worst part, he had no idea that the woman he trusted was about to make his life a living hell. It started with push-ups. A little exercise never killed anyone, right? Well, not unless that exercise lasts for hours. Not unless you're doing it on an empty stomach. Not unless stopping, just for a second, means you get hit. Hard. For Jallen McConnie, exercise wasn't about health. It wasn't about strength. It was about control. And for the next 32 days, his cousin, Johnette Booker, would make sure he had none. Welcome to the boot camp from hell. You ever hear about those motivational boot camps? The ones that promise to change your life, with early morning jogs and protein shakes. Well, this was not that kind of boot camp. For Jallen, this so-called training meant waking up at the crack of dawn, if he even got to sleep at all. It meant relentless physical drills, forced exercises, and impossible demands. He was forced to run up and down the stairs, again, and again, and again, until his legs gave out beneath him. And when they did, well, that was a problem. Because in Johnette's world, pain wasn't an excuse. If he fell, he got back up. If he cried while running. And if he begged for mercy. Johnette Booker didn't believe in mercy. Now, what's a good boot camp without a healthy diet? Except, in this one, meals weren't earned. They were stolen from him. Johnette rationed his food like he was some kind of prisoner of war. Some days, he got a handful of dry cereal. Other days, nothing at all. And water? That was a luxury, too. Because when Johnette was feeling extra cruel, she'd give him a sip and then take it away. And remember, this was a growing teenage boy. His body needed food. His mind needed food. But instead, his stomach ached with hunger, and his brain became foggy from exhaustion. But Johnette wasn't done yet. No, she was just getting started. In most homes, the bathroom is a place of privacy, a place of comfort, a place where for a few moments, you can lock the world outside. But for Jallen, the bathroom was a place of punishment. When Johnette got tired of beating him in the living room, she'd drag him into the bathroom for something far worse. She filled the tub with ice-cold water and threw him in, letting his body shake and convulse from the freezing temperatures. Sometimes, she'd hold his head down, just enough to make him panic, just enough to make him think he might not come back up. And if that wasn't enough, she found another way to make him suffer. The human body can only go so long without sleep. It starts to break down. The mind fractures. It becomes harder to tell what's real and what's not. And Johnette knew that. So she made sure Jallen barely slept at all. Every time his eyes closed, she'd scream at him, shake him, throw water in his face. Anything to keep him awake. Anything to break him down. And through it all, Jallen still tried to fight. He still tried to hold on. But every day, it got harder. Every day, his body got weaker. And Johnette, she was just warming up. There's a limit to how much a human body can take. A breaking point. And after 32 days of starvation, exhaustion, and torture, Jallen McConnie had reached his. But what finally pushed him over the edge? It wasn't the beatings. It wasn't the hunger. It wasn't even the sleepless nights. It was something much simpler. It was water. Now, in most situations, water is a good thing. Keeps you hydrated. Keeps you alive. Doctors even recommend 8 glasses a day. But in the Booker household, water wasn't about hydration. It was about control. And on Jallen's last day, it was about punishment. Johnette Booker had made up her mind. Today, he was going to learn a lesson. And she was going to make sure he never forgot it. Of course, Jallen wouldn't get the chance to remember it. Because by the end of the day, he'd be gone. The bathtub was already filled. Ice-cold water. The kind that sends shockwaves through your body the second you touch it. Jallen was ordered in. No hesitation. No questions. Just obedience. He was weak. His body barely responded anymore. But he obeyed. Because he had no other choice. And then she made him drink. Gulp after gulp. More than his body could handle. His stomach distended. He started gagging, choking on the very thing meant to keep him alive. And Johnette, she watched, expressionless, cold, unmoved. Maybe she thought she was cleansing him. Maybe she thought she was making him stronger. Or maybe she just didn't care anymore. Water intoxication. That's what the medical reports would later call it. Too much liquid, too fast. It dilutes the sodium in the bloodstream, causing the brain to swell. And when that happens, well, let's just say, it's not a peaceful way to go. Jallen tried to stand up. He stumbled. His body gave out. He fell, face first, into the freezing water. And just like that, it was over. Now, if most people saw a 15-year-old collapse in front of them, they'd probably, panic, call for help, do literally anything other than stand there. But Johnette, she did nothing. Number 911 call. No CPR. No rushing to his side. Just silence. Jallen's body remained in the tub for hours before Johnette even pretended to be concerned. And even then, it wasn't guilt that made her act. It wasn't regret. It was fear. Fear of what people would say. fear of what would happen if the truth came out. So, she did what any guilty person would do. She lied. When authorities arrived, Johnette had her story ready. And let's just say it was creative. According to her, Jallen was just clumsy. Said he accidentally drank too much water. Said it was all one big misunderstanding. But there was just one problem. The bruises. The malnutrition. The weeks of documented abuse. The walls that still echoed with his screams. Yeah, turns out, you can't just misunderstand 32 days of torture. And the authorities? They weren't buying it. But this wasn't over. Not yet. Jallen's death was just the beginning of the investigation. It would take months before the full story unraveled. And when it did, well, let's just say, what was hiding beneath the surface was even worse than anyone could have imagined. The thing about lies is that they always fall apart. It might take hours. It might take days. But sooner or later, the truth claws its way to the surface. And in the case of Johnette Booker, that truth was lying lifeless in a bathtub. When paramedics arrived at the Booker residence, they were met with the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. No screaming, no crying, no desperate pleas to save him. Just a woman standing over a body that had long since stopped breathing. Jallen McConnie, 15 years old, autistic, abused beyond recognition, was dead. His skin was pale. His lips blue. His body, motionless in ice-cold water. And Johnette, she barely looked surprised. In fact, she barely looked anything at all. When questioned, Johnette put on what we can only describe as the worst acting, performance, ever. First, she claimed Jallen had been perfectly healthy, just clumsy and not taking care of himself. Then, she said he had an accident in the bathtub, but, oh, she was too late to save him. And my personal favorite, she told police that Jallen had been drinking too much water, all on his own. Right. Because all teenagers wake up one morning and decide to chug themselves to death. But the thing about crime scenes, they don't lie. Jallen's body told a different story. A story of prolonged suffering, of starvation, of systematic torture that had lasted over a month. Bruises covered his skin, some fresh, some old, all signs of unrelenting abuse. His ribs jutted out, a clear sign of severe malnutrition. His fingers, bruised and swollen, as if he had spent days trying to protect himself. And then, there were the water levels in his lungs. Authorities would later confirm that Jallen didn't just collapse. He didn't just fall unconscious. He was forced to drink until his body couldn't take it anymore. His cause of death? Water intoxication. A slow, agonizing process that swelled his brain until it shut down his body completely. Johnette hadn't just punished him. She had killed him. At first, authorities weren't sure what to believe. A tragic accident, a case of neglect, or something much, much darker. But then, the interviews started, and that's when the real horror came to light. Neighbors had heard the screams, night after night. Family members had seen the bruises, but were too afraid to ask questions. One witness recalled seeing Jallen, days before his death, so weak he could barely stand. Another, a former friend of Johnette's, admitted she once joked about breaking the boy's spirit. Yeah, not exactly a funny joke when the punchline is murder. With all this evidence stacking up, you'd think Johnette would have realized her lies weren't going to hold up. But nope. She kept doubling down, kept insisting she loved Jallen and would never hurt him. And the police? They let her talk, because every word out of her mouth was another nail in her own coffin. It was only a matter of time before the full weight of the law came crashing down on Johnette Booker. The question wasn't if she was guilty, but just how much of the truth would finally come to light. Some people break under the weight of guilt. Others, they stare it dead in the eye and pretend it doesn't exist. Johnette Booker was one of those people. For weeks after Jallen's death, she walked free. No cuffs, no charges, just freedom. But here's the thing about justice. It moves slow, painfully slow. But when it finally catches up, it doesn't knock. It kicks down the door. November 18th, 2023. A crisp fall morning. The kind of day when the world feels peaceful, normal. Not for Johnette. Because on that morning, her past came knocking. Detectives arrived at her home, badges flashing, hands ready on their cuffs. And Johnette, she greeted them with the same blank expression she wore the day Jallen died. as if she didn't have a single worry in the world. She was arrested on charges of manslaughter, child abuse, and neglect. And just like that, the woman who thought she could talk her way out of anything was suddenly out of words. She was taken into custody, booked, fingerprinted, and placed in a cell where the walls don't care how many lies you tell. It was no boot camp, no power, no control, just four cold walls and a reality she could no longer escape. And then came a trial. Ah, yes, the place where truth and lies go head to head, and only one comes out alive. Johnette's defense? A masterpiece of delusion. Her lawyers painted her as a concerned guardian who lacked proper parenting skills, but had only meant well. The prosecution? They painted something else entirely. A picture of a manipulative woman who turned a vulnerable child into her personal punching bag. Guess which version the jury believed? Day after day, the courtroom heard the unfiltered horror of what Jallen endured. For 32 days, he was starved, beaten, tortured, forced to drink water until his body gave out. The jury listened. The judge listened. And Jallen's family, they sat there, holding back tears, forced to relive every agonizing moment. Johnette, she barely flinched. No tears, no remorse, just that same dead-eyed stare. If guilt was eating her alive, she hid it well. And then after 7 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The air in the courtroom was heavy. Jallen's family braced for impact. The judge looked Johnette in the eye and read the verdict aloud. Guilty on all charges. Johnette Booker was sentenced to 20 years in prison. 20 years for a life she could never give back. 20 years for the boy who had no voice, no choice, and no way to escape her brutality. The courtroom was silent. Justice had been served. But for Jallen's family, it would never be enough. Because no prison cell, no judge, no sentence could ever bring him back. Jallen McConnie should have had a future. He should have had birthdays. He should have had love. Instead, he got 32 days of hell. And a family left with nothing but memories and a broken heart. Justice caught up with Johnette Booker, but it came too late for the one who needed it most. Some stories stay with you long after the headlines fade, long after the courtroom's empty, long after the guilty are locked away. Jallen McConnie's story is one of them. Jallen was supposed to come home. He was supposed to grow up, to keep drawing, to keep laughing, to keep being a kid. But instead, his mother got a phone call. The kind no parent should ever get. The kind that shatters you from the inside out. Her son wasn't coming home. Ever. She never got to say goodbye. Never got to hold him one last time. All she got was a name on a cold, lifeless report. Cause of death. Water intoxication. Neglect. Abuse. Fancy words for something much simpler. Jallen McConnie didn't just die. He was broken, day by day, until there was nothing left of him. And the saddest part, this wasn't a random act of violence. It wasn't some masked intruder or a senseless accident. No, this was discipline. This was tough love. Or at least, that's what Johnette Booker told herself. Because when all else fails, what better excuse is there than I was only trying to help? So, let's ask the question no one likes to answer. At what point does discipline become abuse? When the bruises form? When the screams start? When the fear replaces love? Or is it long before that? When someone decides that pain is the only way to teach? Jallen never stood a chance. And that's the real tragedy. For 32 days, a child suffered in silence. And no one stopped it. No one pulled him out. No one saved him. And now, the only thing left is the question, who else is out there, suffering right now? And what are we doing about it? Jallen's story is a chilling reminder of how abuse can hide behind the guise of discipline. And it raises a terrifying question. How many others are suffering right now, just out of sight? What do you think should have been done to stop it sooner? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon. Because these stories need to be told. And the more we talk about them, the less likely they are to happen again.